Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. So I'm going to continue with our next video in the Python Programming for Kids series. I just opened up Visual Studio Code and it remembered the file that I just had open last, which is where we left off. I'm going to run our game by doing run start debugging and then select Python file. Just to refresh where we left off with our game. Okay, so we have this blank window now, and you can see it's printing the text title screen down in this terminal here. And if I press a key, it switches to like the main gameplay state. It starts printing out that text, and then I can press another key to switch back. So that's where we left off. And the large point of all of this was to, if you play a lot of video games, you'll notice they have more than like the main game that you're actually playing. They'll have like a title screen, maybe a screen for some options, like high score screens and so on. And we can often think of these as different sort of states the game can be in. And so what we're trying to do is have a way to have our game switch between these different states. And because our program had started getting a little more complicated, I started by creating this separate little program in a new file without our main gameplay logic, so that we can work on getting sort of the structure and the organization of our code that's dealing with switching between these states before we start adding in like the main logic for each of the states. And so that's kind of where we left off. Now, so today what I think we're going to do is look at switching, instead of having the text printed out to the terminal here, which is done using the print function built into Python, we're going to try to actually draw the text on the screen that we pop up for our game in that window. So that's what we're going to do today. And so I'm going to take where we left off and save a new file, just so it's easy for people to go back and reference. You can continue editing the same file if you want on your own. Yeah, and so we'll say call this drawing title screen, and what do we want to call this? Yeah, we'll just call this drawing title screen text on screen, and we'll save that. Now, before we get into the meat of that, I want to show you something from when we left off, which, if you notice, if I close this window now, oh, well, it's kind of odd that it's not happening. Let me see if I can reproduce it. Well, so at least, let's see here. Well, I'm not sure why it's happening, but I did figure out why previously. You may have noticed like this red box popped up when we created our, or when we exited our program. That was because that was an uncaught exception that was being thrown from sys.exit here. And so we could uncheck this box here in the bottom left corner to catch uncaught exceptions, but there's actually another way we can solve that I looked up. When you call the sys.exit function, you can actually pass a status, and if you can see the help text that sort of just popped up here from hovering over it, 0 defaults to success. And so if you are getting that error and you want to sort of get rid of it, you can just type a 0 there, and that should cause Visual Studio Code here to not, pause with that red box when you exit your program, if that's still happening to you. I'm not sure why it stopped happening all of a sudden for me here, but regardless, we don't have to deal with that interrupting us now. Okay, on to the main thing. So, first thing, rather than drawing title screen text, rather than printing it out with a print function, I'm going to actually draw some text here instead. Now, if I look at our program here, you'll notice that I sort of left in loading of our font, which sort of defines what the different characters, the letters and numbers that we're going to draw our text with look like. So I left that in this sort of stub program because I knew we were going to use it later. And so in theory, all we have to do is replace this line of code here with some code. It might be multiple lines that actually is able to draw some text on the screen. So to refresh what that looks like, I'm going to open up one of our previous programs that actually has us drawing some text on the screen and refresh what it sort of looks like. And so I want to sort of look at this side by side with our other program so I can reference it. If you right click on the tab for the file name here, I think you can do split right. Yeah, and it'll show kind of a separate window on the right side that you can look at and scroll independently. Useful if you ever want to reference some code elsewhere. So, let's see how we draw some text. So we're looking for font. If I double click on font here, I'll have it highlighted, and Visual Studio Code will start showing me places where that's referenced, I believe. So if we scroll down through our program, we can see down here, draw the player's lives and score. In this section of our code, that's where we're actually using the font to draw some text. And so what do we need to do over in our main program here to do that? Well, the main thing we need to do is call this font.render function or method, which will take our text and somehow draw it to this surface. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that over here. So text surface is going to be font.render, and then we're going to need to pass some parameters here. Now before we do that, I want to mention how can I access the font variable here? Well, that's because the font variable, which is defined down here, was created sort of in our global scope of our Python program in this file. And so that means all of my functions can reference that variable without having me to say font equals pygame.font and pass whatever here. So I don't have to do that because this is global. There are other ways you can organize the code, but they involve more thinking that we're not going to really be able to get into now. So we need pygame.font.render. So we see takes the text we want to draw first. So title screen, if that's what we want our text to be. Then we're going to have a parameter for anti-alias, which, if you look at the code on the right side here, you'll see I created a Boolean constant to say we don't really care about anti-aliasing, which is a way to sort of smooth out drawing of text so it doesn't look all pixels. You don't see a bunch of blockiness to it. I'm going to do that here as well. So I'm going to create that constant and then go here, do no anti-aliasing. So that's the next parameter. And then Finally, we need a color for our font. So I'm going to assume we have a constant with that name there. And then that will be how we draw our font. Now for the font color, I'm going to do the same thing as I did over here, which is basically white, because remember 255 is basically the maximum of the red, green, and blue color components, and so that's how we get white on a computer. So pygame.color 255, 255, 255. Alright, so now let's try running this program and see what it does. Alright, so you see it's not actually still drawing any text on screen. It's not printing out title screen down here anymore because I removed that code. So it is drawing this text, I believe. But the problem is I forgot something, which is this code on the right you see here for how we actually basically copy or blit, copying like the bits, the binary data from our image rendered on the surface over to our main screen. And so that's sort of what I have to do here. Text left X, top Y, screen, position, 0, 0. And then, if I want to draw it in the top left corner, then we're just going to call screen.blit and do text surface. That's the surface we want to copy with our drawing, and then we're going to say we're going to put it in the top left screen position. And to select this text that Visual Studio Code has helpfully highlighted for me, I'm just going to press Enter, and it'll fill in the rest of that for me. So I Control S to save, and now let's try running our game. Okay, so now you can see that title screen is up in the top left corner, and if I press a key to switch to the main gameplay state, that text goes away. And then if I press a key again, we'll go back to our title screen there. Okay, so let's do something similar for the main gameplay state here. So we're going to get rid of that and instead basically sort of just copy this code here. I'm going to type it all out, but you can like select it with your mouse and do edit copy and then go down here and edit paste if you want, or the shortcut keys would be Control C to copy and then Control V to paste. I'm just going to type it out real quick. It's not that much code. Alright, so now let's try that and run it and see how it goes. Okay, we're on the title screen, we press a key, now it's drawing different text, main gameplay state. Then title screen again, if I press a key, we switch between them. So now we have text being drawn on our screen here, and not being printed out with the print statement down in our console or terminal anymore. I think that'll be all for this video. We will continue in the next video doing something a little more with these different screens here. So that will be all for this video.